do this.
You ready?
Thanks again, man.
No doubt.
Thank you for coming, bro. We missed you.
Yeah. I missed me too. I was playing around doing a whole bunch of stuff with all this foolishness going on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Here we go.
Hit the record button first. Welcome back to another ALV podcast.
What up, what up, what up?
Follow us on Instagram at podcastalv.
And to check out the YouTube videos for the podcast, hit the link in the bio.
Yep, and everything is on alvpodcast.com, and here we go.
Here we go, here we go.
So,
what's going on, guys?
we got a good one.
Yeah.
Welcome back. It's my man Monty.
What's up?
We got John Michael here. We haven't seen you in a hot second.
Yeah,
I know,
man.
it's been almost about a year since the last time I was
True.
here.
I was just thinking about that. I was already married when you came. We were I think 4 episodes already in when you first came.
Yeah.
And so it's about the because our anniversary was on the 25th.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Damn, so that's literally almost a year when you think about
It's
it.
about a year
Yeah.
since the last time I was here. It's been
That's
about
true.
a year.
I like that, and we purposely brought that shit because I know you always get cold.
Yeah.
A little
you were like,
heat.
no, we gotta do it inside.
We gotta do it inside.
It's cold as fuck.
You know what? I think I've warmed up since then.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm not as cold as I was back then.
So you know that the gas one that we have upstairs, we got it for this guy. 'Cause every time we came, which is funny. So what you been up to?
Just been working. Still doing a lot of staging and choreography and stuff like that. Also, I've been doing a lot of lectures still, and a lot of spiritual work for people in terms of helping with their spirituality and helping them get past obstacles in their life, and basically giving out like a prescription for spiritual behavior, things that they should do to get themselves back in balance because they've gotten so off balance.
With everything going on.
Yeah, it's very easy to get off balance
Right.
because, at first you have to have a foundation upon which to stand. But because everything is so my way, this way, could be that way, if you don't have a sense of an ontological sense of culture about yourself, I don't care what it is that you come from whatever, you have to have some sense of cultural, ontological behavior.
What's ontological?
Meaning that everything that you do has some relevance or some significance in nature. And if it doesn't, then you can't last. All of the things that make you and comprise who you are will fade away. And that's when people start losing their mind and losing their sense of self and losing their sense of lonely and feeling depressed and feeling like no one cares. If you don't have a sense of cultural responsibility to what it is that you're connected to, then it's easy to get lost in this world.
How does
facts.
what's been going on with COVID and things like that, and people isolating themselves, kind of affect the same thing what you're just talking about?
That it causes depression.
Right.
Humans by nature are communal beings. That's it. We need each other.
Right.
We need to touch and feel and hold sex is past sex, but sex is built for two humans to really hold and touch each other.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take that aspect out of the human psyche and out of the human behavioral structure system that we have, it severely affects our serotonin levels and our dopamine levels. So basically what happens is you are breeding people and turning them into what is classified as demons.
Right.
Or just
Keeping them in the dark.
you're keeping them as you're turning people evil,
Right.
so to speak, in a way. And when you take away, it's like if you have a child and the child is never held by his mother, the child won't understand affection, won't know what it is, and won't be able to respond affectionately to. You're raising sociopaths in that way.
Yeah.
And they have laboratories now where they're raising children outside of the womb, or creating children outside of the womb.
I read
of the
something
womb.
about that
So
shit.
they're having
yeah.
eggs
Yeah.
Basically.
without a woman. Without a woman. So
It's like watching a movie. It's literally a sci-fi movie that's just out there.
yeah.
It's
so
some crazy shit.
you have, with those kinds of things that are happening, you have an agenda. I'm just going to say it flat out. There's an agenda against humanity.
Facts.
There's a whole agenda against the human experience. So whatever it is that's causing this agenda isn't human.
But don't you think that's been happening like throughout, like just life in general, like throughout history? I mean, there's always been some kind of event where you know hundreds of thousands or millions of lives are lost, you know, at a time, like in a specific, and it's been like ongoing for. I mean, if you look at history, you could see a kind of a pattern of like certain situations
Yeah.
causing like
That
havoc.
this has happened in the past.
Here's a
type
better
deal.
question. What's the condition that causes that, though? Because, see, we can talk about the patterns of the past, and we can talk about how the patterns of the past keep coming up. But if we don't know the conditions that cause these patterns to exist, then it doesn't make any sense to talk about it. People, what it is people like to have conversations about the effect of a thing. But
Right.
taking responsibility for the conditions under which a thing occurs is a different level of deification.
Right.
That's a different level of godship. There's a difference between you being God and a servant of God. And I don't mean that in a spiritual way. I mean that in the practical sense.
Yeah.
God is only God because his servants. But God
True.
also sets
Oh,
a
shit.
condition.
Damn.
You follow? God also sets a condition for things to be.
Right.
So the person who takes responsibility for the condition
It's a God.
is God.
And you always taking responsibility of yourself.
Right.
But when,
So-
to your point, though, if you're talking about the conditions of the world, you're talking about people who are setting things in place to make you have certain types of choices and then call those choices freedom.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Like,
as long as you
Damn,
did
that's
not
true.
set the ascribe the diameter for the circumference of what is being considered freedom, you a slave.
His story.
yeah.
You follow what I'm saying?
Well, that kind of coincides with the video I just sent you with the general that talked about the vaccine. I do want to get you guys' opinion on that because that's a big topic right now.
Yeah, the
But
vaccine
they
shit.
were the general or whoever the guy was. They didn't really have his name, but when they were doing a conference, he basically stated that they want to vaccinate everyone within a 24-hour period, and they've been
Okay.
practicing for like 6 months
I don't
of how
think,
to do
I
that.
don't think
no
that.
way.
There's
I don't
no
think they-
fucking way. Unless
So-
like
That's
Again.
wild. Yeah. Like,
Again,
No, they talked about setups like obviously using like CVS's and like the military, like in New York, for example, right? The governor Cuomo talked about how they wanted to once the Emergency Something Act happens, which you might know it, and they kind of get that permission, they want to use the military to come in to help. Right, so the military would set up camps and things like that, so you got places to go, so you can have multiple locations in different districts.
here's the problem. The problem is, I know when I'm goddamn sick and when I'm not. I don't need you to tell me that. I don't need to wear a mask. If the virus is 1/100th of an inch, then that's like giving a tic tac through a fence if I put on a mask.
that's
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to look at what is the condition, again, that is causing this to be. The condition is you're sick. People who believe that they are sick, they sick.
Right. Yeah.
They're sick. They're sick right now. You create the condition for your experience. These are the things that are lost because people, again, do not have a cultural sense of integrity about themselves. They have what is called artificial intelligence. And I'm going to tell you something. Artificial intelligence is not new. It's old as the Bible because the Bible is artificial intelligence. The Quran is artificial intelligence. The Torah is artificial intelligence. All of these books that name some monotheistic person or being that sits up in the sky and decrees everything for everybody without taking into consideration the laws of nature, what
Right.
we experience, it's artificial. So you have to create an artificial environment to put artificial intelligence in because real intelligence responds to the environment and it responds in a symbiotic fashion. I said this the last time I was here. When you have intelligent things in nature, because nature is a criterion for all things to exist, the nature of a thing is its essence. And the nature of nature is that it perpetuates itself to perfection. It never reaches perfection because it's in a constant state of perpetuating itself to that state or to that degree. So when you have people who are basically making an environment through algorithms, which are mathematical equations that figure themselves out. So they're acting like neuronic pathways. But it's artificial. Why? Because it wasn't made out of the material of organic beings.
Right.
And all that means is carbon-based. So at the root, it means that it's black. Anything that's organic is carbon-based. So people talk about melanin. It's large deposits of carbon. That's what that is. And the more carbon that you have in you, the more life you have in you. That's just facts.
And that's actually interesting that you said that, because one of the quotes that Cuomo talked about in New York was, he was saying how he's like, I'm not going to let this disease, right, attack the people who were attacked the most. And he said, and because he basically was expressing the urban community. I don't know what his quote was, but he literally was saying how blacks and Latinos were the ones that got affected the most, like in the urban environments. Right. So we want to help them first.
I don't want your help, bro.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I don't trust you. I have no reason to trust you. I don't want your help. Leave me and my body alone. Don't touch me. And I have a right to defend my body. I don't need somebody to tell me when to be sick and when not to be sick. They say, oh, it's affecting other people. You could be asymptomatic. Okay, so what is the flu?
That's
Is
what
the
I've
flu
been
not
saying.
asymptomatic?
That's
Like,
what
are
I've
you in
been
a coma?
saying.
So what did you do
Right.
for the flu?
Yeah.
And these numbers that they keep throwing up on television every time something.
Yup.
Now, I was in Atlanta during the time that Biden quote unquote won. There was no election. He was selected
Right.
as the president. He
Right.
wasn't. There, no president has ever been elected.
They're always
All the
selected.
presidents are selected. Read the back of the voter registration card. You'll see it. Those presidents are selected. So when they selected Joe Biden, all these people were running around celebrating in the streets down in Atlanta and on Piedmont and all over, having parties and blue parties and going blue. What the hell? Blue parties. So they're having parties.
Wearing masks.
Wearing masks. No.
No. Most of them weren't.
Yeah,
They
that's
weren't
true.
wearing masks. So what happened to COVID?
Yeah.
Right.
What happened to
Right.
COVID during the
Right.
time that the riots happened? What happened to it? What happened
Exactly.
to it? It is
Exactly.
used as a weapon. And it's not even a weapon per se against your body as much as it is against your mind. If I can make you think something,
Right.
if I can make you believe something, just believe it. I don't have to give you the facts.
Right.
What does this sound like? Just believe
Right.
that there's a virus that's out there. And the virus, it knows the distance between 5 feet 11 inches
Right.
and 6 feet.
6 feet.
It actually can tell the difference. It thinks.
Yeah.
I thought it was 13 feet.
Right. Yeah. It was like,
Another
come
thing
on,
is
bro.
when they like shut down and give curfews, like you got to be in by 10
Oh,
o'clock.
because the virus knows the time.
yeah,
It knows what time it
Because
is.
it's gonna
virus knows the
like,
time.
And when
The virus
10
knows the
o'clock.
time.
Don't be calm.
it's gonna transform to
No, no,
like
no.
super
The
COVID.
virus-
Freaks come out at night, homie.
The
Freaks come
virus
out
can
at
tell
night.
time. And you know what else? You know what else? The virus can tell if you've washed your hands or not.
Right.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Gyms are closed, but you know. all
yeah.
that shit.
But all the things,
But
all the
barbershop-
things that would kill a virus, they shut down.
Right.
There's a sauna room inside the gym.
Facts.
So if the virus can't be, or it lives
National
inside
parks.
the nostrils, right,
Right.
or the
Yeah.
nasal
National
cavities,
parks.
right, and heat inside the nasal cavities, because it can't be, from what I understand, until they change it, until it fixes,
Right.
until it fits this narrative, then it's gonna
Yeah.
be something else, right?
Right.
Because every time you figure out, they give you something to say that can combat the virus, they turn around and go, oh no,
Right.
no, that's not what it was. What we actually meant to say was, and then they moved the goal
Oh,
line
that,
further
that,
along.
that,
You start
and if
sweating- you
y'all
start
hear that
sweating your
shit?
dye and
No,
shit.
that now they came out saying that mouthwash kills it in
Oh,
like
yeah.
30 seconds.
But listen to this.
Like
So-
Listerine.
Remember when?
The Listerine, yes.
That's what I'm saying. Like they started shutting down everything that had to do with you being outside. And then on Joe Rogan's podcast, he was like, "What did the number one thing that all these people that had COVID, they had deficiencies in vitamin D.
Right.
Going
Sunlight.
out
'Cause
in
you're
the
inside.
sunlight is like the best way to get vitamin D.
So I'm glad
But
you
they're
brought that
shutting
point up.
They're shutting it down so they can keep us inside.
Right.
I'm glad you
It's
brought
like-
that point up, because if you understand how melanin works, melanin absorbs vitamin D directly from the sun, directly from it.
It's a full circle.
So with that being the case, I mean, I can go through the scientific process
Go
for
ahead.
those people who need to know. But
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to
Imagine
bore
it.
you in a coma, but the bottom line is that when
Cliff
you
notes.
sunlight energy is a form of light code. It's organic or natural nature, netter, God light codes. It's a conversation. Sunlight is. And it's decoded by way of your skin for those who are carbon-based and melanated. Those light codes go into the dermis, they go under the epidermis, and there's something called the tyrannosomes. Not tyrannosomes, the melanocytes. Melanocytes. And inside the melanocytes, melanosome, and inside the melanosome is the melanocyte. And basically what that is it's a pocket filled with carbon cells.
I love that it's called sight.
So what it does is it releases, depending on how much carbon is in there, it gives you your complexion. Because it releases through the melanocyte, the melanosome has a melanocyte in it, and that's what releases quote unquote melanin into what is considered the skin. But to be able to synthesize that light form and turn it into energy, that's black that does that. So it actually translates those codes into energy, and those light signatures goes into your synapses, the dendrites, neurons, the neuronic parasympathetic nervous system that causes movement. There's also something called neuromelanin or brain melanin, which allows your brain to be able to fire off quicker.
Oh shit.
Do you follow what I'm saying? To fire off through the synapses quicker. And the synapse is nothing but a space between two dendrites. There's a space between those two. And it's electric charges that go from one to the other. It happens in milliseconds. When you have more of that happening, you have more mental capacity. You have the ability to think quicker and to think faster and be more creative. So, things like culture, music, dance, they directly come from literally the air you breathe and the food you eat. Because here's the deal. Any cultural person or any person on a planet that has a sense of culture, natural people, right? We call them the indigenous people.
It's all of us.
Right? Those people receive their codes for nature and the way that they behave with each other from what happens in nature. That's their first community. The first community is for people who live by the Nile. When the Nile floods, it irrigates their lands. They're able to grow their crops and eat.
And eat. Yep.
So now the water is a giver to them. So it's the nature of the water that gives to them. So they have a deification name for it, or they ascribe names to it that relate the beings and the people back to the land. Because the land is what? Conscious. And the water is what? Alive. Why is it alive? Because it gives you life. And anything that is alive, that gives life, can't be dead. These are the things that we know or we used to know and we got away from, and thus we lost our cultural integrity. So nature can't recognize you. You follow what I'm saying?
That's why you get
And this
sick.
is why we're in the situation that we're in now, because they could not have come up with any vaccine. If you were in a natural place on natural land, you would not need to have a vaccine. Nature will have already cured you before there was an instant of a COVID-19 or COVID. I call them COVIDians because they're believers in death and sickness.
It's like a
They have
cult.
no facts that anybody is sick, but they just believe
Right.
that you're sick.
Right.
And anytime you shut down a mosque, a church, or a temple because somebody's potentially sick, and these are places where God and Yahweh and Jehovah and Allah all supposed to be at, I thought they were good gods that healed you. But apparently COVID kicked their ass.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
God ain't had nothing
I'm
on
done.
COVID
I'm covered.
because all of the churches closed down. They said, well, no, we was outside. Okay, so then why weren't you outside to begin with then?
Right.
In nature.
Why weren't you out there in the first place? Y'all have buildings, huge monuments and places where 500,000 and more people gathered in the name of your God. But soon as one little virus, the size of 1/100th of an inch, comes along, your God ain't got no wings.
100.
None of them.
I had a question. What's the, I forgot what it's called. What's the cube that Muslims
The
rotating.
Kaaba.
So you asked me about that, right? When we were talking about the cube, right? Because the
Yeah.
cube is black, right? And there's a meteor in it.
They're saying that meteor comprises the body of Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it was brown,
it's
but it
got
turned
like a
black.
big conspiracy shit around it, like with the whole black cube thing.
But
'Cause
they
it
stopped
has-
them though,
it-
right? Are people still
Oh,
there?
I don't
No,
know.
it's
I don't
a
know.
yearly.
You make it's called
thing.
a Hajj. You make Hajj around
Yeah.
the pilgrimage.
Yeah.
Around the Kaaba in
It's
Mecca.
supposed to be 24 hours a day, right?
Well,
Oh, when
during
is
the
that?
time, well, you can actually make Hajj whenever you want. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if it's.
Yeah.
it's
They
24
have
hours
like
a day.
one big day where it's like, millions of people.
I've
go
never
there.
gone over and made Hajj. As you know, when I was into Islam, I've never gone over and made Hajj, so I'm not a Hajj anything. But the point that I'm making is that the Kaaba, I'm not sure if they stopped that.
That'd be that's an interesting question
Yeah.
because
You know.
that's like huge.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's. A
I mean,
big deal.
I guess you go online and look it up. But the reality of the fact is that the point we're here talking about that is a problem.
Right. Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right,
It's
yeah,
a
yeah,
problem.
yeah.
It's more diabolical than you could imagine. Like we're experiencing things on a level that have been planned far deeper than what you can think.
Mm-hmm.
And until you can conceive of this great demon, that what it's doing, you have to almost be able to intuit it
Mm-hmm.
and feel it before you read about it. Because by the time you read about it, they lied.
Right.
So how do you feel about, like when you talk about things like what we want to talk about, like ayahuasca or doing mushrooms, psychedelics, psilocybins, things that really like in tune you with nature and that kind of take you out of body, the DMT type aspect. A lot of the stuff you were talking about, which was deep because you were talking about spiritual, you were talking about nature, you were talking about how nature is what, and culture is what, cultures you to not have to give a
Not
fuck
be
about
sick.
what's going on.
Well, it's the cult
Well, yeah.
that
Yeah.
you are.
Right.
It's the cult that you are a part of, the cult that you belong to. See, people think that cult is a bad thing. It's not.
It's every religion kind of
community.
Your family that you living in your house with is a
It's a
cult. Your
cult,
behavior is a
right.
cult.
Yeah.
Your friends have a cult that you hang around. You know what I'm saying? Everybody belongs in a cult. It's just that when you ascribe these kinds of cultish or cult-like behaviors, the people who have an agenda for you to join their cult can't get in.
Oh shit.
Damn.
That's why they say that your cult is evil.
right.
And their cult, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, is good.
I never thought about it like that.
You follow?
Yeah.
Your cult, culture,
Right.
enforces and makes you strong.
Right.
Their cult
Ain't working out.
ain't working out for you.
That works with
Right.
race.
You
That
follow
works
what I'm
with
saying?
So they
race
try
as
to
well.
tell you that you
They
shit's
try to tell you
bad.
that your
right.
cult
yeah,
is
facts.
bad, but their cult that they put on TV with Damien and The Exorcist and,
Right.
and all these other Halloween and Jason and all
Right,
that,
right,
all
right.
of those cults, because they got the cross in there upside down in most of those movies, right? That's the
Yep.
cult that they teach you about on television. Mm-hmm. And then they mix that with the cult that they teach you about on Sunday, as if the two of them are different. When you got a being that is a living quote unquote sacrifice that dies, not a chicken, not a ram, not a cow, a being, a person that died, right? And they say that person, the death of that person, is what gave the rest of the world the ability to be sin, to have forgiveness for their sins.
Right.
That sounds to me like what they practice and what is considered voodoo. There's always you cannot get one thing
Without the
without
other.
sacrifice. You have to sacrifice.
Right.
That was in Egypt as well, right?
It was yeah. That's part of the cult.
Right. Right.
Do you follow
right.
what I'm saying?
Yep.
And it's the same thing that they're doing. So why is yours evil and theirs good? The condition under which you think is not a condition that's conducive for your growth and development. They've hijacked your ability to think
Right.
for yourself. Because everything you filter through what they say.
Right.
We wouldn't have this conversation if we were already engaged in our cultural activity. there would be nothing to talk about outside of it because we wouldn't know anything outside
Right.
of it.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
You
So-
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That also includes race as well, then, because
There's no such thing as race.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah.
There's only pedigree.
Yeah.
What is your pedigree?
What is your pedigree?
Because
Race
race
is-
is just an invisible line.
No, race is that's something that people run, to my knowledge. You know, it's like a sport.
Yeah. It's a
Damn.
race.
But when you talk about people's pedigree, that has to do with genetics.
Right.
That doesn't have anything to do with quote unquote race. What is your genetic pedigree?
So where are your ancestors from? Where's your family from?
Well, my parents are from Mexico,
Like where in the?
like central part, coast side, from Jalisco.
Okay.
But then, like my great grandparents, they were European.
Mm.
They're Spaniards and French, I think. So
Oh, you went deep.
yeah,
What about you?
some shit like
So
that.
my parents are from Texas, but we all come from Mexico, Central State.
So one of the things that he went through, because you just came back from Mexico, correct?
Yeah.
And what I love is
I'm
how
gonna still answer your question. I still remember what your question was.
with what.
You asked me about ayahuasca. And
Yeah,
DMT,
yeah,
what I
yeah.
thought about
So that's one of the reasons why we have him here. 'Cause,
Yeah.
You know,
He
he
just-
went through. He just came back, and you did how many? 2?
I did a combo
Well, go
ceremony,
ahead. He can tell you.
and then I did a bufa ceremony. That was all in one day, and then about 5 days later did the ayahuasca ceremony.
So explain the first ones
Okay, so the first ones,
and like what they are.
yeah, so both bufa and combo, they're just frogs that are found in the Amazon, and they have a gland on them that, you know, they just some kind of poison. The combo, what they do is that they actually burn marks in you, 7 marks, one on your arm, one on your arm, each arm, one in the center, one on your back, and then on your ankles. And
They tell you why,
well, that's the way they administer the poison.
but they tell
So-
you why there's 7 in the locations.
Oh no, I mean like it's just to, you know, get to all your body. Like some people, they don't want them on all different. When they just have, you'll see guys that have like lines going down, and
They
they
just
might
want
have just like
one
7
certain
marks.
body
Yeah,
part.
so like you'll see like people that you can
Oh,
tell
like-
that they've done combo because they might have like scars from all the
So it's
the burns.
You think that's that? No disrespect, but you think that's like ego, when it's this idea that they want, instead of having a specific areas, like, oh, like kind of want to show how many times I've done it.
Possibly, I'm not sure, but I
What
mean,
that is let me just. I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
What it is, it's a poison that they burn into you, and your body fights it off, and in fighting it off, it releases all of the toxins in the body, so it kind of cleanses you. That's what the purpose of it is. The frog skin is an actual poison, and then burning it into you. You can have, like you said, you can have it going down your arm. You can put it in certain different places to pull out the toxins from those areas. But it's basically to make you so sick that your body fights those toxins from that frog that they use so it pulls out or cleans out all of your organs and cleans out all your body. So that's one way of cleansing your organs.
Is that how it kind of felt like?
And that's the reason why we did the combo before the ayahuasca, is because the shaman recommended that me being my first time doing ayahuasca, that he doesn't want my ayahuasca experience to just be purging bad energy and toxins and stuff like that. So he was like, how about you just come, you know, we'll do combo, bufa one day. So combo to just help clean this out.
For an extra
And-
$1,000.
and no lie, like as soon as they go around, they burn the marks in you. He comes back around with a toothpick, picks the blister, and then he puts the frog poison on your skin.
So it's like,
And-
oh, gotcha.
yeah, so like
That's,
the first maybe like 10 minutes, you can tell that your body is fighting off something, because literally I felt like my temperature rise, and it was kind of like that feeling that I could literally start feeling myself start sweating from my forehead and my back. And then I started to realize that my pulse was getting like stronger. I could feel it in my neck. I could feel it in my head. And the whole point of the combo was to, again, get rid of you all your toxins. And for the next maybe 20 to 30 minutes, I was like dry heaving like crazy, like dry heaving, trying to throw up. And then the shaman, of course, you know, he's encouraging you to get like all your bad thoughts and stuff like that. Try to, you know, put it in your stomach so that it can come up. And
Because
Interesting.
even though it's mental,
Right.
It's still physical.
Right.
Yeah, like you're physically, like honestly, like I was kind of out of it after about maybe like the 15-minute mark. It was really intense that I started throwing up a lot, but in my mind I felt like I was throwing up like physical stuff, but not
Oh,
like
shit.
not
That's
like
that's
not
how
like
ayahuasca
spirits or
was,
anything like
yeah.
that. It just felt like liquid was coming out. It felt like food was coming out. And then after the ceremony, he's like, hey, just go take your bucket in the ocean, wash it off, and then throw it out. And I looked down, and literally it was just a bunch of spit.
Yeah. So you imagined something that really wasn't
I
there.
imagined like liquid coming out. I imagined food coming out.
Right.
And it felt like a lot of stuff was coming out, but I looked down and it was just a little bit of spit.
Oh,
so
wow,
that was
that's
the combo.
crazy.
The combo lasted for about an hour, and afterwards he goes ahead and sets everything back up. And Bufa is the same thing, not the exact same frog. It's a different frog that has discrete poison in their glands. And instead of putting it on your skin, they put it in a little glass vial. They light it on fire. It starts to smoke up, and then you inhale it. And that was like completely different.
Like crack.
Like that
kidding.
was like completely different because it is a DMT experience similar to ayahuasca, but ayahuasca it's like a slow process where you're starting to go in. This was like an instant like boom, I'm blasted through
0 to 60.
Yeah, I'm blasted through space. And it was crazy because like one of the issues that I have being a veteran who's been to Iraq, Afghanistan is I pin up a lot of emotions. Like I've seen, my buddies get killed. I've had many funerals of service members and stuff like that. So I just pin up all that stuff because, it's something that like in the Marine Corps, it's always taught like, hey, there's a mission. You got to like put that shit aside and keep on.
Yep.
So a lot of the emotions that I pent up, I haven't really addressed. And during my bufa, when I like blasted through, it felt like tears were coming down, but when they would fall, it would hit the ground and I could feel the earth shake. And it was like
That's
all
insane.
all these emotions like kept
Right.
like just falling out. And what it felt like was it was like felt like someone like swooped me up, put me in a white room and was like, remember all those emotions that you pent up and you didn't address? Well, here's 10-15 minutes to get all that shit out. Ready, go. And like I just started like crying.
What?
And
Yo,
the
that's
shot, like as soon as I
crazy.
was done, like as soon as I started to come to, I was laying on my back. As soon as I started to come to, I just felt like extremely, like
Light.
I mean, I just felt like not emotionless, but like more in tune with my emotions. Like I felt like when I was happy, I felt happy. You know,
Right,
like when I
right.
was crying, I felt
So
like
you were like a line.
yeah, instead of
Yeah.
like just having an emotion and putting it aside because there's work I got to do type stuff.
Damn.
And
I need to do that shit.
so then like after that, I love the ocean. I love the sand. So we did the ceremony on the sand and the ocean's maybe like 10 feet away.
So it's your
So-
nature.
So I literally walked out into the ocean. I just put my feet in the ocean and the shaman came over. He was like, dude, that was extremely beautiful. Like everyone gained a lot from that. And he was like, we just enjoyed watching you get all your emotions out and stuff like that. And then he brought the pipe over again, let me hit it again, and I, boom, went blasted back through.
While you're out in nature.
Yeah, and it was crazy because, like, when we did do it, it's like he was kind of like saying, like, here, like, this is where you need to go. And I literally walked out into the ocean and just floated, and I felt like so just in tune with, like, everything that was going on around me. Like, there's a lot of times where, like, in life where I'll be physically present, but emotionally, mentally, like somewhere else. I got my I got my business. I'm working on my degree. I go to work. I train dogs on the side. Like all this stuff. So like when I'm actually just sitting there with my family and my kids are playing around, what am I doing? I'm thinking something so far like out of the moment that I don't even
Right.
realize what's
Yeah.
going on sometimes. And so
Yep.
like that's why I felt so like happy in the ocean because it was like I was present in like all three realms, like
Nice.
physically, like spiritually,
Right.
mentally, like all that stuff. I was enjoying the water. I would literally hold my breath and go underneath, and the shaman was like, dude, I I felt like I had to come like check on you. 'cause
You're
were
about
down
to
there for a minute.
drown, my guy.
But yeah, like we were just out there having a
He
good
needs some milk.
time. And yeah, dude, it was intense, man.
That's
like
dope.
that was combo, that was Bufa, and I did that about 4 or 5 days before the ayahuasca.
So before you get to the ayahuasca, like that was the question that I had was a lot of the stuff that you were stating when you talk about things like he experienced or the ayahuasca or psilocybins, or different psychedelics that everyone always talks about how it intunes you with nature. I always wanted to kind of know more about that of you have the sections you're talking about, but then it's like, hey, does these things help for people
I
to
feel
get
like
to it?
well, he's gonna answer, but I feel like also adding to that, like it not only intunes you with nature, but it intunes you with yourself in nature. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
Who you are within it?
I personally have never done like DMT or anything or ayahuasca or anything, but I want to because I've heard a lot
It's
of
like cheers. We have
I'm saying like there's studies that have shown that they're trying to test mushrooms on veterans for
Yep.
like PTSD and stuff
That's
like
true.
that. So obviously it has some kind of positive effect on like the mental and the psyche of an individual, especially somebody with like traumatic experiences and shit like
Was
that.
it Oregon? Oregon
So-
just legalized it, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they just legalized recreational shit. So.
The bottom line is that you've lied to yourself for so long that you need an ayahuasca experience.
That makes sense too.
What I mean by that is this. When you have lied to yourself about how you really feel about an emotion and you bury it or whatever, the consistent burying of those emotions that you do over time causes you to lie to yourself every time you bury it. So far to the point where you lose who you are. And the lie becomes your reality and you live that lie. So in order to purge or cleanse yourself from that, you have an ayahuasca experience, or you have the DMT, or you have the frog experience, right? Where you take the poisonous from a frog and it cleanses out all the toxins that you have in your body, because in your lying, you've eaten things
Right.
that you know you shouldn't be eating.
Right.
You've experienced things with people that you probably shouldn't have been experiencing. And these are all the ways that you've led yourself down a path of lies to where you need an ayahuasca experience. Now, can you have those experiences without ayahuasca? Yes. You can do it through breathing.
I've done
I've
it.
heard the
There's
prana.
certain breathing techniques that you can use
Yeah.
to have those same kind of experiences, because your chi
Right.
is directed by your thoughts. You follow what I'm saying? You direct your thoughts by way of you direct your chi by way of your thoughts, and breathing and breath exercises can bring you those same kind of experiences without, and it's not to speak bad of it. You know what I'm saying? But those breathing exercises can bring you those same kinds of experiences to have those things happen.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And not have to go to wherever to get those things done. You follow what I'm saying? It's not, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you need that experience
Right.
to make you a better person or make you, then by all means, definitely do it. But at the same time, you gotta know that everything that you are, that you have available to you, is already inside of you.
DMT is inside.
It's
of it.
already
Well, yeah,
exactly.
right.
It's
It's all
already
inside
inside
of
of you. So the
Your
activation
pineal
of it,
gland.
the
secretes
activation of it, and how to activate it, that's real education. That's That's real education. That's real information about knowing how to activate things inside your body or inside you that are
Naturally.
latent.
Right.
Because those things can't be replaced. You happen once and you will never happen again. You're invaluable beyond all of your wildest dreams. And everybody else knows how valuable you are. That's why they want to use your energy. They want to use your mind. They want to use your emotions. They want to use your thought. So even during this whole
That's why
period
when
when
they
people sit
say,
in front of the TV, right?
Like the Matrix, man.
No, that's why they always say like check the people who you're around with because they drain your energy.
Stop watching television. Never mind check the people who you're around.
True.
Stop watching TV.
Right.
Because what happens is people were sitting in front of the television the whole time that this quote unquote mess was going on, and people were being told that they were sick.
Yeah.
With nice little songs and music in the background telling you that you're sick.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's not even a question.
It's a Humane Society commercial.
Right. It's not even a question of necessarily who you are around as much as it is who's inside of you.
What you're
Who's
taking
directing
in.
you.
Right.
And that's where, again, it goes back to if you have a cult of you inside of you. There are 31 different people that are inside your body right now based on your DNA. Now, I worked in a place where basically you have to go back 31 people in your family to determine who you are.
That's wild.
Because that's what is comprised
Some
you
crazy shit.
on both sides. That's who you are.
Right.
So you potentially have 31 people that are sitting in this chair, in that chair right now. Potentially.
Right.
You follow? And so in certain days, different ones come out and they give you different habits. They give you different behaviors. You have different thoughts. Right? And if we were in tune enough with who we are, sometimes people's parents will go, you act just like so-and-so. Well, you look like so-and-so today. So-and-so came out to play today.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? You're not who you are by yourself. There's a composition of you. Your body is not one composite being. There's 76 trillion cells inside your body from one that was chosen to make the journey to get here to have you be who you are.
That's crazy.
So you can't, do you understand what I'm saying? When you understand who you are at that level, your mentality about your experience begins to change.
About your existence.
Exactly. Your experience, your existence, all of that begins to change, and you look at things from a different perspective. It's not I, me, my, it's we and us. And once you understand the we and us, the impact of the world is not just on you anymore. Do you understand what I'm saying? So now you don't have to sit and be in places of depression and be in places of worry and bring yourself to where you're in a place where you feel lost and abused and hurt and all this other. Those are emotions that you have to actually engage. You have to make a decision. The same way you have to make a decision to take a cigarette, which is not good for you, and put it to your mouth. After reading what the hell is on the side of it,
This guy.
you put it to your mouth.
Right.
And you light it.
And you suck it.
Do you follow what I'm saying?
You inhale.
And you light it. So those are the kinds of things that you do emotionally.
Let me get that later.
Those are the kinds of things that you do emotionally to yourself.
Yeah.
And the cleansing part of that is where ayahuasca, DMT, and all of that comes in, because you literally die.
Yeah.
Your
facts.
conscious self literally dies, and your subconscious is now
Takes over.
awake and can have its experience.
It's your dream self. I always look at it that way, because I always thought about how, so what's real, right? Are we real right now, or when you're sleeping, is that the truth?
Well, that's my thing.
Damn,
It's
you still had waves on this whole
I sure
time?
did.
You found your way.
I did. I found my way.
Because I always wondered that. Because sometimes you'll have, I always like to say that it's easier to talk about self instead of saying sometimes you. You know, it's like sometimes I will have dreams that when you wake up, you're more shocked that it was a dream. So like, what's real
my thing.
and what's fake? You know,
I'll put it to you like
hardly
this.
dream.
Anytime you can sleep and you so-called sleep and you have a physical experience in your sleep, you need you've all been there. You need outside when you awake. But when you sleep, all you are is inside.
you lost me with that.
What I'm saying is,
You got me.
what I'm saying is,
This dude's stupid.
you got it.
It's
You understand what I'm saying? You got what I'm talking about?
it's the Reformation. Reformation continues.
You understand what I'm saying?
Okay, you said you understood. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
because he's saying that
Girl,
when you're
Sherlock
awake,
Holmes.
you're here, but when your eyes are closed, you're inside.
Okay.
That's what he's saying.
What?
So your
There's more
inside
to it.
experience is having an outside effect.
So your inside is experiencing outside.
Exactly.
Your inside experience is having an outer effect. When you're inside yourself, You're inside
Takes me
your
a
thoughts
second.
and inside your
Bruh.
body. But your physical body is having an effect from something that's going on inside your mind. Now, this goes to this point. If that can happen in sleep, what do you think you can do when you're awake if you concentrate hard enough?
Anything.
I've flown a couple of times in my sleep. I'll say that much.
No, this is the point that I'm making. If you're asleep and you can make things happen in your sleep when you're not conscious, what can you make happen when you're awake
That's the
and
10%
conscious?
of your brain that you only use.
Do you follow what I'm saying? That has to do with the fact that mind is composed of the space between atoms. It's composed of mind. I'll say it again because I don't think y'all understand what I'm saying.
You lost me there.
The space between atoms,
Okay.
ATOMS,
Right.
is mind.
So it's not dark. It's not
It's
empty.
mind. It is mind.
Okay.
I
get it.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's mind. Yeah.
So
okay.
if the space between atoms is mind, and you have mind, do you find what is it that you cannot do through concentrated thought? Because it's like when you have a remote control, and you point it at the television, right? And you click, the picture comes clear.
the connection between
It's the same thing that happens with you and your mind. If you concentrate your mind, you can organize the pixels of your life to give you what it is that you want.
manifestation.
It's manifestation. You do it if you do it in your sleep, then you could do it when you're awake. Do you find what I'm saying?
Right.
That's the real in terms of who you actually are. That's the real nature of you. That's the nature of you. You're manifesting, manifestors, creator beings, creators, creation. All of that is you. You're the seeker and the search. All at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just how much do you want to suffer?
Right.
Because you order that. You order your suffering.
By
You
manifesting
request it.
Right.
No, you request it because you think that that's what makes you who you are. Right? But where did you get that information from?
Yourself.
Your parents, probably.
But where did they get that information from?
Probably their parents.
Right. We can go back and
Yeah,
go
it's
back
like
To
and go
30
back
for
and go back.
31,
Right.
31 times.
But back to my original point, the condition wasn't set by your
Right.
parents. Parents. They didn't set that condition.
You yourself said it.
No.
No.
They had help with the setting of the
Right.
conditions.
Their surroundings.
They had help with the setting of conditions by people coming in and instructing them on how to behave.
Right.
COVID.
There you go. So you guys are really back at, it's an old trick is what I'm pointing to. This whole thing is an old trick. It's the colonization, not of the land, but the colonization now of your mind, which is more detrimental than the colonization of land.
Yeah.
That's where
That's where it gets creepy with all the fucking like social media and all this fucking like that one documentary.
the social dilemma.
The
The
social
last
dilemma.
time I was here, before all of this stuff happened,
Talked about artificial
what was I
intelligence.
telling you all to do? You need to gather with each. Didn't I say that?
Yeah,
I said you need to gather with each other. Start touching physically each other.
That's
Start
true.
being physically around one another. And the reason I was telling you that is because social media has gotten to the point where it's okay to see somebody on a screen and not physically go see him.
Right.
So you don't know what that person is doing. You don't know if that person is alive or dead. You don't know if that was a pre-recorded whatever. But what happens is we've turned people into things because we can swipe,
been-
and
there's been
you're swiping a
commercials.
life.
It's been
Yep.
commercial. Like Zoom had a commercial and talking about how, if you're gonna have things. Oh, we're talking about California. The idea of like how California had
Oh,
it
yeah.
where, because due to
The
COVID, you
governor
could only
was like super strict. And
The governor
he
was saying
caught
how
at
you
a
can't
restaurant.
have. The governor stated how you can't have more than 3 families. Right? It has to be outdoors. You have to wear masks. You cannot chant or sing during Thanksgiving. But
Stop
they were
right there. How you gonna tell me?
Right.
Hold up. How you gonna tell me not to chant or to sing?
Oh, their excuse was because if you chant or sing, you know, and if you
I don't give a
spit
damn about the
and
excuse.
somebody's close
So
to
But
you,
but here's the
Stupid,
dumb shit
bro.
though. Here's the dumb shit though. Here's the
That
dumb shit.
shit dumb
So
as
COVID
fuck.
stops when you eat
Right.
at a restaurant.
Right.
You do know that, don't you? Because you have to walk in the restaurant with your goddamn mask on.
Right.
As soon as you
And
sit down and eat, you have to take your mask off. So
'Cause if you start laughing-
COVID knows that you're eating, so it stops at that point. Get the
you know
fuck
you're
out of
eating a
here.
really good steak.
Listen,
That's like at the gyms. You gotta wear a mask just to fucking check in, and then you can take it off to work.
Not at LA Fitness. I just walk right in.
I'm like, that shit makes no
They
sense, bro.
scan your head and you just keep going. Like a
shit
rent to the
makes
sun.
You got the
No
employees
sense.
Oh,
with
you know
the
what?
half
You
on,
know what
half
makes
off.
no sense?
They're like,
you know,
I'm like, y'all
oh,
dumb
that's
as
funny.
fuck.
You know what makes no sense? When you go to LA Fitness, you go into the sauna, and they actually have tape set up for 6 feet
Bruh.
in the fucking sauna. I was like, don't you remember that they said that
The
heat
most.
kills it?
yeah.
So that's the best place you could be
Yeah.
in, but they're telling you, hey,
You can't-
social distance
Right.
in this bitch right
Does
here.
that
while
make
you're
sense?
swimming.
Social distance.
Right. It doesn't.
No, social distance.
Right.
It's an
an
oxymoron.
oxymoron.
yeah.
That is an oxymoron.
Alone, together. It's an oxymoron. Those are spells being cast.
That one.
Yep.
Do it out.
There's spells being cast. And because I'm just gonna say it, people don't think anymore.
They
They're
don't.
thought. Meaning that there's something else that's doing their thinking. So because you don't think anymore, you don't get that. You don't see it. You don't catch it. But these things like Alone Together and that stupid music that they play when they show these commercials, right?
Little jingles.
The little jingles and it's all spell casting. That's why people are walking around and they don't use common sense. The things that we're talking about,
Right.
they'll go, "Oh well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I just wanna feel safe."
Right.
Okay, well then feel safe, dummy. At what point did you allow somebody on an electric box to tell you because they flash some numbers on the screen? And,
Right.
and by the way, I do data analytics too as well. You cannot present information to a person from a data analytical perspective without doing a qualitative or quantitative assessment.
Right.
I could never go to a manager or never go to a CEO and say, "Hey, listen, there are 5,337 people that need to be fired."
It's like there's only two
I say,
employees.
wait, what do you mean? Right. He's gonna say, "Well, what do you mean? Where'd you get this information from?"
Right.
Oh, that's what I said. What do you mean? You need to qualify that information, but not on TV, not on CNN. They could just throw numbers up there and tell you, "Hey, listen, these many people died."
It's a ticker.
This is how you devalue the life. It's a ticker for people dying.
That's crazy.
A ticker
That's crazy.
for people dying desensitizes you to life when, again, consistent with now everybody's in line, online. Desensitizes you to human behavior. Don't chant. Don't sing. Don't call on your ancestors. Don't sing. Don't have euphoric states. Don't have serotonin and dopamine
That's
levels
crazy.
released in you based on spiritual connection.
DMT.
Demonizing you.
right.
They're turning you into demons. There's no other way to explain it. That's why the last time I was telling you, you guys gotta, whatever culture you're in, if you're Mayan, Mexican, whatever it is, go back to it. Go back to it.
Yeah, because it's true if you think about it. Like lately, like everybody's on fucking edge. You know, I mean, obviously you think ever since COVID started, you know, people get unemployed, and then you got the whole election shit and everything, and people are just like, one little thing, fucking, God forbid, they end up on fucking World Star. You know what I mean? And it's like you just see that more and more often now. That you know everything started, but.
So-
Like to your point of being like demonized, that's what.
So how did it feel? Like he's talking about, you know, go back to where you're from. Like you had that experience. How long? And you were gone for how long? Like 6 weeks?
I was
More?
down there for like 30 days.
And you had the full-fledged. I mean, the photos you had were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, he was
And
meditating in front of. Is that
there's
Chichen Itza, right?
Yeah, Chichen Itza. But I mean, like he was saying, like, go back to your roots. And honestly, like, that was, like, the most real I've ever felt being in Mexico. Not doing the ayahuasca, not doing the combo, but, like, after the fact or before the fact. Like, as soon as I landed in Mexico, man, like, all the stuff that happens in America, like, sitting in traffic for 45 minutes on your way to a job that you don't like to be at, you know, sitting in traffic on the way home or doing all these things, like, as soon as I got to Mexico, that shit didn't matter. Like, I literally just stayed in Playa del Carmen, got a Airbnb, and I literally was out on the beach, like, every single day. I would get up, I would go watch sunrise, and I would have some coffee, eat with some friends, work out, and I just felt like the fast-paced
Sounds
life
awesome.
of America, like, was non-existent. And I had to fly back for one day, and the second that I got back, it was like all that shit just came back. So, like, being over here is like a certain kind of pace of life. And getting back to
bubble.
my roots, like, I felt like I was like home. I was like, man, this is where I need to be. Like, honestly, like, if I could, which I definitely could, I would live in Mexico, man, honestly.
But think about that. Think about what you said, though. You know, the idea that I always feel like sometimes this is more. It's a trap almost. You know, there's a lot going on compared to who was it? One of my friends talked about how China, for example, will always have an up because they're a nation that's equal. They're all Asian, right? But here is always a divide. You know, and that's very hard for some people to swallow, the fact where it's like Democrat, Republican, but a lot of, especially now when you talk about the selection, right? That separates, right? So not everyone sees each other as American. There's people that I've met who, if you have American flag outside your house, they immediately think that you're like pro-Trump. You know, and that's not how it should be. But then it's like, and then like you said, you came back and all that swallowed you. But when you left and you went to your roots, went to where your ancestors are from, right? It's like they gave you that big hug once you came onto the island. Like in Puerto
Yeah,
Rico,
and it's not just in Mexico though. Like, I met a guy down there. He was a nomad, and he explained to me this. It's like a chart. It's like your linear lines. It's like where your person. It's like where you're actually depending on what day you were born. You know, the hour, the minute, everything. It goes back to your linear lines. And what was crazy is I had an amazing time in Mexico, but I also lived 3 years in Okinawa, Japan. And that was like the most fun I've ever had. When I looked up my linear lines, guess where a majority of my linear lines
It was
were?
in this.
Dude, it was on the Pacific. Okinawa was
it
one of
30
the
is that
places was like
33
crossing my
degree
linear lines. And that's where I got into scuba diving. That's where I got into all the stuff that literally still drives me today. Like being in the sky, being in the ocean, all that stuff I did in Okinawa. And then another linear line was in the Yucatan. And I
That's
spent,
crazy.
30 days in the Yucatan and I had an amazing time. But, that's all getting back to your roots type stuff.
That goes back to your 31 people.
Yeah, for sure.
which makes 4.
Yeah, and that was honestly the best times of my life. Like when I think back on memories, I think back of Okinawa. I spent 3 years there, lived out with the locals and everything. Had an amazing time. Again, the last time I had fun recently was when I was in Mexico. I had a really good time.
You know, there's pyramids out in Japan too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of
Underwater.
cool stuff over there.
Well, it wasn't made originally underwater, but when a flood comes through, supposedly that pyramid is the same size as the ones in Egypt, and then the ones you were at is the
Chichen
same
Itza.
size as the one in Egypt as well.
Those are very early pyramids. Those pyramids aren't as old as the ones that are in Nuba,
Where's Nuba?
right on the eastern part of Africa. Or Aswan.
There's pyramids there.
Yeah, they're about 4 or 5 feet tall.
Oh, it's small.
Very short. They're very small, but the people who built them were very small. They were considered Ta'ites. Very small. In the Bible, they're called Havilites, the land of Havilah. They're called Havilites. But they're about 4 to 5 feet tall.
Like pygmies almost.
Yeah, and the pyramids used to resonate at a specific frequency consistent with the bones in their body. So they kept themselves in tune. So they weren't just built to be looked at. They had actual functions. And we all, I mean, whether you're Mayan or Mexican or whatever you want to call yourself, we all have an indigenous tie to those structures. Everybody who is an indigenous person has a tie to those structures.
That's true.
People
always-
who don't
That's
aren't.
crazy.
I always find fascinating, like Chichen Itza, the idea, like it dumbfounds me how two things. I had to throw that out. Ancient Aliens, right? The show on like Discovery Channel, show that, or History Channel, and it's called Ancient Aliens, right? It's always white people telling you, oh, you know, there's aliens, things like that, but they always undermine, right, the quality of work that like the Aztec, the Mayans, or Egyptians, things like that, have put into a lot of the stuff that has been created, right, to make it seem like, oh, they could have not done it themselves, you know, alien creatures must have helped them type deal, as opposed to seeing like European structures when they would design like you know, Gothic cathedrals, which are very hard to do as well, you know, but they never talk about things like that. But I always find fascinating like things like when you were at Chichen Itza and the idea where during what is it, during the solstice, and how the snake will come down. You know, like, think about how crazy that is, that you had to build something, right, that specifically every time, once or twice a year, right, during a specific time of the year, right, when there's a solar eclipse, things like that, right, the shadow will actually create a snake to go down
Yeah.
to connect to the bottom, which is the head.
And it's also the four corners. The sun aligns with the window at each season. So when winter starts, and then when summer starts or fall starts, it aligns. That's how they knew which season it was, by the sun going into
Because there's
that
no
window.
there's no winter,
Yeah.
really.
And so like that was a lot of stuff that was interesting. Like the person that was telling me, who you know, knew about the whole place, they made that kind of stuff based off of the sun, and that's how they thought the harvest came.
That's how they thought the harvest came, or is that how the harvest came?
That's how the harvest came.
That's how the harvest came. It's a lot better than some person named whatever her name is on TV telling you it's about to rain. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So again, it's the ties back to nature. And the thing about Egypt, what you mentioned about Egypt, the reason why white folks love to talk about Egypt is because of the Hyksos dynasty. That's when they came in there, with the Greeks and the Jalians and the people who conquered Egypt were Greeks. When Khufu, Cheops let them come in. So they love to talk about Egypt from that perspective, but they can't talk about pre-dynastic Egypt. Before there was writing on the walls, before there were all of these the Rosetta Stone, which by the way is fake. It is fake. We gave them that stone. We knew it was fake when we gave it to them. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what I'm talking
Like,
about
get
is
out my house. Here's a cookie.
mouth to ear. They can't get that. And that's pre-dynastic Egypt. We did not write anything down.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
It's
it was
like
mouth
Creto
to ear.
Mutwa.
Yeah.
Creto, you know, I told you about that guy, Creto Mutwa. There's a guy by the name of David Icke, right? And he is exactly what he talked about, where he is like the historian of his tribe in Africa. And he had like a 6-hour interview with him, and he talked about like reptilians. He talked about how there was a mountain that no one to this day goes to. They're like, don't go there, right? And his job was to, like, somebody told him everything, he memorized it, and he has to train somebody
Right,
else.
right,
And he
right.
talked about even the idea where how man started, where, you know, an alien came down, they took pretty much like whatever was the primates at the time, had them go to that mountain, but like, and they would shoot sides. They would walk in and then walk out, and one was like male, one was female, and like, but you think, but I look at it where it's like this guy doesn't know technology, you know, doesn't know what else is out there, but he has like this detailed amount of information. Or like, is it the Dinka tribe that knew
No.
about Sirius?
You're talking
That's the
about
shit.
just because
the
you said
Dogon.
Dinka, the Dogon.
Dogon.
Because you said Dinka, it threw me off. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's the Dogon tribe of Mali that knew about the elliptical orbits of Sirius B around Sirius A. And if you ask them where they're from, they take their finger and draw in the sand. Now, what other person do you know about famous that took their finger and drew in the sand.
Oh shit. Famous?
Famous spiritual person.
Jesus?
Jesus.
Oh. Interesting.
Took his finger and drew in the sand. When they asked him, so the Dogon tribe of Mali, if you ask them where they're from, they'll begin telling you about the elliptical orbits of Sirius B around Sirius A. And they have a Sigi every 60 years, which means that when that cycle is complete of those orbits, that nation is charged up. They're energized from that. Now, how they knew about that, but again, cult, sure. In lieu of technology. The greatest technological advance ever made was you. Everything is based and designed off of your body. The television is designed off of your mind. Computers designed off of your mind.
That's true.
Cars designed off of your body. The ability to travel, not drive. There's a difference. Driving is owned by a corporation, but traveling is an organic right.
Federal?
No, it's organic right guaranteed you by the Constitution, which existed before the federal government's contracts. The Constitution is a contract between two nations.
Yeah.
It does not give you rights. Does not give you rights. It puts in check the contractual obligation from foreigners, as opposed to the original national people that were on this land. So it does not give you rights. People got to understand that's what the Bill of Rights is for. The Constitution doesn't give you rights. It's a contractual organization, a contractual document between two nations.
Shit.
Holy
I'm
fuck.
trying to get my thoughts right again after that, because that's like a whole nother rabbit hole that you can go into.
Well, the reason why it
we
relates,
have, but yeah, it's wild.
let me tell you why it relates, because the federal government has nothing to do with that. FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. They're a group of private investors that gave a bunch of contracts to people and y'all signed them. So now you have to go according to the stipulations of the contracts, because the Constitution does say that you have the right to contract. So you can contract with anybody. And that's what they did. They contracted with you. You have to always what? Sign. Because we need your what? We need your signature. But your signature carries a bond, which is money. We can go all into that. But that's a whole other conversation.
That's another
But the bottom line is that your being is valuable. It's worth money. Up until the point where they're taking body parts out of black women and using them to be able to have stem cell research and all this other stuff. I mean, the Kardashians were taking, what was it? I saw the thing with Tommy Hilfiger, and he was putting stuff on his face from baby placenta.
Yeah, what was it?
Anti-aging. It's like anti-aging.
Anti-aging
Anti-aging
thing.
shit.
Ellen was talking that with Sandra Bullock. They were saying how they use I think it was Asian babies foreskin.
Or some shit
And they were
like
creating
that.
some skin, and they were creating a skin cream to talk about, to help with anti-aging.
Yeah.
And they were talking. It
skin
starts
or
with an
some
A,
shit. I don't know.
because it's the same thing with a lot of the cult stuff they talk about in Hollywood, where they would like do the sacrifices with babies, but they would take the adrenochrome,
some shit like
something crazy, which would keep them young.
that.
Yeah, alleged. I mean, who knows what it is?
Listen, if you can dream it and talk about it to that degree, I don't think that it's more fictional than it is. I don't think it's more non-fictional than it is fiction. I mean, look at what the hell we dealing with. Somebody running around here telling you to be scared of a virus and put a mask. And let's be clear, that's not a mask. It's a muzzle. A mask covers your entire face. They're muzzling you. The same thing that you put on a dog is the same thing that you put on your face. That's property.
Like, shit your mind.
That's property. You're being treated like property. So slavery is real. And they don't give a goddamn what color it is. All of y'all.
Mental.
Because they can think, if you think about it, that's how it's much easier to be like, hey, everyone has to wear a mask. And if 90% of the people wearing masks, and then there's like this 10% that are not, you know who to go after. Because they're the ones that are going to be the ones to be outspoken and not be in control.
No, they're the ones that you won't see.
That too.
You won't see them. If they're smart, they won't be seen.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's true. I think there are a lot of hidden signs that this pandemic is kind of like.
It's some
Shady.
bullshit.
It is
It's
because
on-
if it was true, if they were true about saying, "Hey, we want to save humanity, please wear this mask," there's signs right in front of you that says this is bullshit. And one of the signs is if masks really did have an effect on the virus or whatnot, they would educate us on what mask to properly wear. But no, you can have a cloth mask.
Right.
And they say, "Oh, that's okay."
Yep.
And so that's why you see these little signs as, yeah, this virus is bullshit. Because if I really cared about humanity, I really cared about you, I wouldn't. If I saw you, I'd be like, okay, let's just wear, this mask, and I would start properly educating you. But if I'm trying to fool you, I just say, hey, wear a mask, and I don't care what the kind of mask he has
Yeah.
on. And that's
Yeah.
that's like one of the major signs that I
That's
see.
true,
That's like,
because-
this shit is bullshit.
If
Yeah.
I care about you, I would tell you how to build up your immune system.
Right.
Exactly.
Like,
With,
you don't
like,
hear a
vitamins.
single
Exactly.
word
You don't hear a
about,
single word about
Your
How to-
diet, your
15 minutes a day, just
exercise.
go out and sit in the sun.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you need. And that's the same thing with, luckily, like with this skin disease that I have, vitiligo. I went to hundreds of doctors growing up, and they used to tell me that the sun was like, don't go in the sun because your skin has no it's just like pretty much like albino skin. And they always used to tell me, like, don't go in the sun. And I remember going to laser treatment, creams, all this stuff that cost a ton of money. It did absolutely nothing. But I used to have vitiligo on my face, and one day my parents took me to, I don't know, we went to Florida somewhere. And of course, I'm a kid. I stayed out in the sun the whole time. Burnt this skin completely. Got like bad sunburn, but to the point where my skin literally just color came back and everything. And sure enough, like I just came back from Mexico. I spent 30-something days there in the sun every single day, and under my armpits, all my skin is starting to come back.
But think
No
about
creams,
that, though.
no nothing, just natural sunlight and taking care of my body. I started to do, I started drinking,
He's about
and
to
being
become vegan,
cognizant. Well, I was vegan for a little bit, just being cognizant of what makes my body feel like I'm bloating and whatnot. So I would eat certain things like red meat and certain like breads and stuff, and I would feel inflamed. So I started being more in tune with my body, and sure enough, like my skin literally, my skin color literally started to come back.
That was the one thing I always loved about the movie Lucy with Scarlett Johansson. And they talk about how she actually took a drug, right, that was inside of her, and like the whole bag like ripped out, whatever. Long story short, it was like limitless kind of, where it started enhancing her brain function, where instead of 10%, next thing you know, it was 30%, then it was 40%, 50%, 100% was at the end, right? And at the very end, she became pure carbon, right, which is a whole nother topic. But I always find it fascinating when they talk about how, how powerful our minds really are, where, like Monty was saying, like, if you will it, anyone can heal themselves. Because if you can control I always say, like, if you can control your arm, why can't you control, like, the cells inside you? I always used to think that. Why can't you go even deeper and control that? Like, if, there's like when people are like paralyzed, and you hear stories about that, right? You hear stories about people who are paralyzed, right? But they will themselves to wiggle their toe, right? Because they're like, or like people will just be in the hospital, like, I don't want to be here. No,
Yeah.
I'm healthy. I'm okay. And the next thing you know, they're here, healing themselves.
Yeah, no, I
Shout out
agree.
to my cousin Che because he had COVID. And, I called him and asked him how he was doing.
How many weeks ago have you? How many days ago have you been hanging out with him?
Oh, my
He
God.
said he called
We
him.
haven't-
He called
we haven't-
us.
Pay
he
attention.
don't even live in the same state. We good. But
Hallelujah.
the point that I'm making is that I talked to him and I says, how are you doing? He said, man, I'm tired of being sick. I said, well, then don't be sick no more. He was like, but bro, I said, listen, don't be sick no more if you're tired of being sick.
Right.
Stop acting sick. Go do some shit that's not sick shit. So I called him a couple of weeks later. I said, how you doing? He's like, oh, I'm good, man. When I got tired of that shit, I just got up and started, I just started doing regular shit, man, like going outside and it's in your mind.
Right.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I agree.
in your mind.
Facts.
And the part that you're talking about, you healing yourself, know that yourself is the sun.
It's true. There's a sun
Yourself
inside you.
is the water. Yourself is the air. That's why you have in Egypt, you have Shu, the god of air. But that's you. Shu is the air. Not the god of, it is the air. Follow Neith, the goddess of moisture. She is moisture.
Right.
You and Orisha, you have Yamaya. Right? You familiar? Or Jemoja. Jemoja, sea. She is the ocean. Oshun is the river. Not the god of, goddess of. She's the river. But because we ascribe these characteristics and these personalities to these things that give us life and that teach us, they're related to us. They are relatives. Do you understand? The elements that are around you, you're physically related to.
Not like, yeah, I can get that.
So
Not
it's
like a
not-
mom and dad type deal. It's like you, like
They're your relatives.
that's inside you. Well, every type of on the periodic chart, everything's in there: gold, silver.
Because they're conscious. Air is conscious. Watch how tornadoes behave. Lightning is conscious. Watch how it behaves. There are tornadoes that can walk down the street, skip a house, and decimate
left
another
turn.
one right next to it. And the house right next, nothing happens to it. That's thought. That's thinking. Follow? Oceans swell at certain times. It's thinking. And anything that big that has life in it, fish, ocean, whales, it has to be alive. Has to be alive. The spirit of life is what animates everything. What you call the spirit, prana, chi. That's you. So if you see yourself in those things, then you will be those things. If you see yourself in the elements, you will be the elements. You will be air. You will be water. You will be fire. You will be land. You will be all the things that you see yourself as, because your consciousness walks you into those realities.
Do you believe that there's multiple realities?
There are multiple. That's not a belief. There are multiple realities.
That's
Did
true.
you see multiple realities in your ayahuasca trip?
I did. Shit. Hell, fuck yeah.
You did.
I like, one of the things that he was just saying is how, like you are air, you are water. Like me, I always felt like I'm a water being. Like I have to go to the ocean. Like I used to surf all the time, constantly. When I used to live in Puerto Rico, I would wake up at 5 a.m. and surf like 3 hours before I had to go to work, right? And I always have to make that like when they talk about like that trip to Mecca, like I have to take that trip to like an ocean. I have to go to water to be a part of that. And there's people who, rather be up in the air, who like are adrenaline junkies with like skydiving or just being in the air in general, or hiking because they're in the mountains, so they're like ground with the earth. Those are those different elements, right? And I felt that like with my ayahuasca trip, and there was only 6 of us, and we did it as a Masonic ritual, right? Because everyone that was in there were Masons. So we made it into a lodge. We opened it without the shaman, and then we closed it without the shaman because we did what we had to do. But every single person that was in there felt a specific element, which was really cool. Like the guy next to me said that while he was doing it, he had an outer body experience and he was flying over the pyramids of Giza, right? The guy next to me on this side saw me right? Laying like this, which I was laying like this, I was knocked the fuck out. I was asleep, right? But in a pharaoh's coffin, in a sarcophagus, in a gold sarcophagus. There was another guy that was over there who, whenever, he was a heavy-set older guy, but when he would breathe, his stomach looked like a frog where it would expand super much and come right back. And he felt that, but we also saw it. So that was one of those things that we talk, like I feel when you talk about spiritual, where, you know, things like ayahuasca, or if you take psychedelics, it takes you out of that falseness and brings you into true reality. You know, and you're starting to see things because I'm curious with you because like when mine started, besides seeing the colors and seeing, you know, like the geometric shapes, everything sounded like music to me. If this person threw up or this person burped or this person coughed, it literally sounded like a symphony where everything, it didn't sound disgusting. It sounded beautiful. You know, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
No, it's funny.
So I'm
'cause,
curious.
Yeah, he had something like that he could talk about.
Let me know.
Yeah, so when I did it, it was, I mean, I'm just telling you off of my own experience, but after I had first taken ayahuasca, he blew out the candle so that you're pretty much just sitting in your thoughts in pitch dark. So imagine being in a temple. Imagine the moon is like, I think it was like half, so you could kind of see the moonlight. No
Is it
light
outdoors?
whatsoever.
Sorry, was it
It's
outdoors?
outdoor
Oh,
temple,
oh.
and only like a few windows. And so you could see, you know, the moon light shining in. You could see it going through the leaves, and it was making shadows in the temple. And so when I first took ayahuasca and I went and sat down, the first couple things that I realized, I was just like, oh, these shadows are pretty cool. So, and I was in my thoughts like, man, what am I gonna feel like when it starts kicking in? Like this is my first time, so I was kind of like curious. I was kind of like super aware of what changes might happen. So I'm looking around, I don't see anything. 30 minutes goes by and I'm like, man, has this kicked in yet? And one of the first things that I started realizing I was doing was I was yawning like really, really big. But I wasn't tired because we had got there at like 7:30, and by this time it's like 8 o'clock. And I just kept yawning like really, really, like extremely big, to the point where I literally thought, like, I was like, man, I think my jaw is gonna like pop out. And I didn't know it then, but later on, that's a way of purging. So like a lot of people think that purging is, you know, crying, throwing up, laughter, different things like that. But yawning is also a way of purging. So I guess it was like my body just kind of like slowly starting to get into it. So I started yawning more, and then like around the 45-minute mark, the shaman comes over and lights a candle. So now we can kind of see like what's going on, but just see enough that we could, if we need to, go outside, use the restroom, whatnot. It was just literally for a way of making sure you're getting where you're going. So you can't really like see like everything. You can't see faces and stuff like that. So by this time, he starts to play music, and the music, obviously, like my senses were like super heightened. I started seeing things like in a pixel form. Not so much like geometrical shapes, but little bitty dots that I can make out into human form. And it felt like it was just getting more intense. And then as he was playing the music, it just became more like sensational. I was like, man, this is like really, really good. Like I'm actually hearing like every single flick of his finger. I could hear everything. So like my sensors were like to the extreme. And I was just having like a really good time for like that next 15 minutes. Of just enjoying like the shapes and enjoying like the music, enjoying like the moonlight coming in, everything. And then I started to feel like I was getting placed back into that white room.
He's like, oh shit.
Yeah, so I started getting placed into this white room.
So you're having too much
And
fun.
when I say she, is because
No, it's true. No.
when I say she is because the message that was being given to me, it wasn't from like a male figure. It didn't feel like it was from a male figure. So like when my dad used to talk to me when I was little, hey, pick up your toys, go brush your teeth, get in bed. And it was like more direct. But as a motherly figure or a womanly figure, it was more like
that
hey,
nature.
look, you need to brush your teeth because, you know, you just ate candy all night. It was kind of like more reasoning, and this is the reason why, and kind of like more explanative. And that's how like I felt like the message was being brought to me. It was more like a motherly figure or a she figure. And so like some of the first things that were popping up in my head were the issue with my skin. So I've had vitiligo almost all my life, and it used to be a big issue where like kids are mean. Kids don't know what vitiligo is, and so like I got treated terribly when I was growing up, saying like, hey, you know, look like a raccoon because I had it all over my face, like all different kind of stuff. And so that was one of the first things she addressed. She was just like, hey, I made you different for a reason, and like as you know, like I have full sleeves. And she was like, I gave you natural tattoos so that you could stick out. Why are you covering your tattoo? Why are you covering your natural tattoos with artificial tattoos? And like that was like huge for me because I was like, damn, like I was like, how does she know that like I'm like the only person that knows why I have my
Why you have
tattoos. Like people
tattoos?
ask me, oh, that's a dope ass
damn.
tattoo, and I'm like, oh, this is a shark. I like sharks, but really, it's because you know I was trying to cover my vitiligo
That's
up.
the ego.
And so
Damn.
like many people don't know that, but when
Right.
she first like hit me with that 1-2, like it was
Yeah.
just like, bam, like you're gonna sit here and listen to everything that I have to say because it's true and
Right.
it's like relating to you. And I was like, it was to the point where I was like, damn, okay, I'm fully compliant. You know, give me the message that I need to hear. And she was addressing like all these things. Another thing that is like is big for me is not being present in the moment. Like I was telling you earlier, like I might be present physically, but mentally I'm elsewhere. And that was something that she addressed. And then another thing that she addressed is she was like, you're a natural leader, but only when you lead by example. When you try to, you know, like tell people like what they need to be doing, they don't receive the message as well as if you show them what needs to be done. So that was like another thing. And she was just like, hey, continue to do what you're doing, but lead by example. And that's where people will gain strength. And it was crazy because like during my ayahuasca experience, I was like so receiving of the message that I was like sitting up. I was like in a meditative state, and other people would come up to me afterwards saying like, hey dude, the way you look during your ayahuasca like helped me through my journey. And that was like a confirmation of
It's that
of
leadership.
leading by
Yeah.
example, not leadership, but leading by example. Because I was like, you know, receiving the message, and people that were having a hard time with their ayahuasca, either throwing up or purging, they said that they would look at me like, damn, he's taking it well. Like, let me try to sit up and, you know, like kind of do that whole thing. So that was like that kind of message, like pairing together. So it was really cool. And then another thing that I have an issue with is getting caught up into what other people are doing. And sometimes like I might see somebody. So my whole calling in life is obviously I'm a dog trainer. Like I train dogs for the police department. I train dogs to detect explosives, like all these things. So I'm really good with dogs. And sometimes when I see other businesses doing other things like podcast or their own lines and all this stuff, like I get interested and it takes me away from what I'm really good at. And that was like what ayahuasca was telling me. Like she's like, you can appreciate all these other things that you actually enjoy, like having your own apparel or, you know, being a part of a podcast, but that's not your calling. Don't get so caught up in it that you want to try to do your own thing, like a podcast and whatnot. Keep doing what you're doing because that's your route. And it was cool because like at that moment, she told me to look down and I could see my path and it was like infinite. And she was like, see what happens when you look over and get caught up into other people? I would look over and I saw cul-de-sacs. So like literally like I could go down that path, but it would take me in a circle and bring me back to another path. And I would go up, you know what I mean? Like if I don't stay in my path, then I'm just going to get caught up in this cul-de-sac. And she was like, if you stay on your own path, look, it's infinite. Like keep going. And so that was like huge, man. Like, and it was cool because like every time that she would give me a message, the shaman was playing music, and then he would take like a 15-minute break. And during that 15-minute break, it was like I was digesting decoding the message that she had given me. So like while she's giving me the message, it was like really like music and stuff like that, and I was like enjoying like receiving it, and I didn't know what the message was until I had my silence, and then I would sit there and be like, I would like sit there and decode it.
Is it indigenous music?
Yeah, so the shaman, he used to play guitar,
Okay.
and he was addicted to cocaine. Did ayahuasca once, and just kept going into it, and ended up quitting, not doing cocaine again, and then just playing music. So he only knew how to play the guitar at first, and then after ayahuasca taught him how to play like other music.
That's crazy.
So he literally is playing music like the whole time, violin, like all harmonica, like all these.
He's personally doing
Yeah,
it.
he's
It wasn't like
literally-
a recording or something.
No, not a recording on. He's
So it's
personally playing.
acoustic.
Yeah, personally playing music and literally like making music with his mouth, like literally like it was just. There was a few times where I would literally like, I was closing my eyes and I would literally have to like look up, like, damn, like, is this dude really
guy
playing
really
that? Like, this dude is good.
Because you're tapping into the frequency.
Yeah, like the vibe, like, and that
That's
was another
the
thing,
best
like
thing you
your
could possibly
ears.
imagine.
Your ears felt so like, oh man, I can't explain it, but like the vibration of the music was so intense that it's like kind of like when you put like a Q-tip in and you're just like, oh, that feels good. Like that's how the music felt. It was like, damn, that shit is good. Like that shit's hitting.
So one of the times that Monty was over, he talked about that, how you don't take sound through your ears, you actually take sound through your skin. Because if you have headphones on, you can hurt your ears. Remember that? And like that shit was fire because he explained, well, fuck it, you're here. Like I don't have to explain that shit, so you understand.
Sound goes into your skin first. Your ear is covered by skin. So you actually have sound as a form of light. It's on the electromagnetic spectrum of light. So sound is light. The same way the sun has light, the sun has a sound that goes with it too. So it's constantly sounding, singing to you all the time. And when you get light or sound from music, that light signature goes into your body, affects your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system, and causes you to move voluntarily and involuntarily. So dancing and then affecting your body in terms of just uncontrollably.
Yeah, and that's
moving.
exactly how I felt. I was laying down, but where I was laying, I was next to the wall. And I just remember like listening to the music and then allowing my hand to just do whatever it wanted to do. And literally like I look up and I'm like just doing this with my hand, just like feeling the clay walls and just like moving up and down like the clay. The music literally just had me doing that. I wasn't consciously like, like touching
Did you feel
wall.
the vibration?
Yeah, I just
Because
felt,
it could have been reverberating off the wall.
and the temple was cool, man. Like, just don't think of a temple like this. Think of it like as a dome shape.
dome.
So like
It's
every
real, so.
sound that he made, it bounced
Oh,
off,
echoed.
and it was just like,
So think about what you just said. You ever been to museums and that, and they would have a dome, and you would stand over there, and somebody would stand here, and you can talk, but it sounds like they were right next to you.
yeah,
Right.
yep. And that's how Chichen Itza is too. Like,
Yeah.
you can clap, and literally
that
it
shit was
echoes off
crazy.
the top of the temple,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
comes
Comes
back,
right back.
and it sounds like a bird, like.